was to blame. No one was the wiser, and no one suspected you. One, two, three, four. Can you see me? I am seeing you. Can you understand what you've done? Fell down, lost your crown, but you made a mistake. You made, but you made a mistake. They all saw you're a traitor to your own cause. Now you say that you're loyal. You would never do anything like that, and never will. How dare I? One, two, three, four. Let the drug take effect. You will tell us the truth. You thought you got away with it. You were seen with the enemy, plotting the demise of the people who trusted you. All you do, but you made a mistake. You made a mistake. You made. Yes, you made a mistake. You made a mistake. You
Hi everyone, I'm back. Okay, Lotus's internet was down, and that's why she wasn't picking up. But apparently, we've been able to bypass. I think she was able to use her phone. Hopefully, she's still with us. Stand by. It's June 10th, 2018. This is a live update with Lotus Justice and myself regarding the child trafficking and corruption. Hi, Lotus. Welcome to the port.
Yeah, we're in a internet outage in our area.
Oh.
Very interesting.
I was like, this is so weird. It's so unlike Lotus.
Absolutely. And I was like, I wasn't even getting I was getting your missed rings in my notifications through the phone, but I wasn't getting the phone. It was really weird. It's the strangest thing. Weird interconnectedness of the world.
Yeah.
They can find me anywhere if they can't find me on the landline. So.
Oh my gosh, Lotus. The agent provocateurs are out like cray-cray.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do. This is one of the reasons why I really steer clear of any type of organizing any type of instrument of politicking, or even of a constitutional nature with organized voter drives and stuff. I've done all this stuff in politics, like under the auspices of politicking for my party or my candidate or my cause or whatever. And I grew up in this, so I know about how to do grassroots organizations, but I really steer clear from that in a greater sense, and I pretty much gave up on it, even when it comes to just educating people. I just put it in the YouTube anymore because I don't really care to interact with people, because people can become destructive in their nature just in confusion. So in times of what would be an uprising or even an enlightenment period of very rapid evolutions of what's going on, an evolution, not necessarily a revolution. Things move very quickly, and so a lot of people don't know a lot of things, and in that there creates confusion. And I will divert to the Mason motto of out of chaos, order. So, that there are systems of law that are given to us by the Constitution, the de jure and the de facto, both pillars, that afford the states the right to form militias for their domestic safety, not the national safety, the domestic safety. Their purpose is strictly for domestic safety. And they are limited in that grant, but it's a very broad grant, and it's part of the fourth branch of the fourth crown. So that is potentially happening, and there are a lot of people that are very invested in this now. I don't care how it came to be. The roots of this extra exposure to something, which basically what happened was someone stumbled upon a circumstance that they believed was evidence of organized child trafficking, and the people in the know caught it on the beginning of it and pushed it into the forefront and just said, just document it, we'll find the truth, right? Just start slamming the news and the evidence. And that's what we're doing still. Everyone should be documenting their concerns. The best thing to do, though, is to not add commentary. Because really, you don't know. But let's let the facts will bear themselves out. It's the same thing with all the stuff that's been happening under Trump. The politics, people that be can politic all they want in the propaganda and the news. Every fact of everything that's ever happened is able to be gotten off NSA computers, folks. The arguments of who did what at what time, those can always all be factually discerned. Okay, discerned. By things that are registered in, is a binary code. So all the facts will come out in the end, So posturing about who is right and who is wrong, you can't really do that right here. All you really can do is just make sure that what you do is righteous and under the law. You can point out when someone's clearly committing fraud. And I think that if you're going to say something about something, you better be willing to say it to the face. But there's a lot of confusion, and shills love to take control of confusion. Like I say, propaganda wins the wave of discontent. If they can push the propaganda spectrum to this is all bogus. Let me tell you something, folks. This is that is a drop in the bucket of what we believe can easily be proven. And, we're going to find the material facts. We're going to find the material witnesses. I'm talking, I've been working on this construct of de jure law reconstitution for like 4 years, and I tried to make it happen with the Dakota tribes. The people that were on the ground, wanted to have this conversation, but they have the elders, and you saw how that turned out. So, and a lot of that, there was a lot of what happens in these situations, this is not the first of its kind. Okay.
I want to mention something because America witnessed the assassination of Lavoy Finicum, who ran a ranch, which basically was a group home for foster kids, boys that worked on the ranch. Lotus.
Right.
And, you worked on that as well, and so did my very good friend Lazaro and Cenero.
Yeah, I mean, that law out there is special. I was trying to get them to know the history behind even why these people thought they had the right to behave as they did, even in the construct of de facto law, which they think they do, because the people of those territories east of the Louisiana Purchase are being lied to as to where they lie in trust law. There's just all this stuff here that people are being told. And, in a way, I think that no one ever really, it's one of those, where you, when you want to ensure success of something, you create tentacles that don't even know what the other one is doing. And if it's a divine process, it'll all come together in the end, right? So that's what string theory really is. I mean, in my mind, if I were to, analyze what string theory is in a metaphor, it's just you send out these possibilities of free-thinking, willed people, and if it's a divine construct, then all those strings will come to an end. You come together in a new dimension or in a new possibility. So that's what we're doing, and that's why I keep saying this is an organic process. Law is organic. I had a conversation today with some of the other organized militia groups. VOP are not the only people that are coming to me, and the people that I'm working with to try to make this happen. We're not going to try. We're going to make it happen. So VOP, the truth of VOP will come to pass, and actors, and the truth, the law will walk itself. There clearly is some law being well established there, and I'm going to tell you, we have been told that the executive branch is monitoring this very closely. They want a lawful solution from the people, and with evidence, productions of evidence, and then we'll present that. I mean, and we're presenting it now. They're watching everything that comes out of this on the internet. I promise you, they're watching all the videos, all the commentaries. And so here's the deal: if you're going to show yourself to be a tool, at least, if you come out in the excitement of things and you say the truth, first witness is always the best, right? The statements of people right after they have a perception of self, before all of the programming kicks in, and before someone calls them as their boss and says you need to pedal back what you said. You're seeing a lot of backpedaling by some people who made very, very, they wanted to attach themselves to the circumstance by making proclamations, which everyone agrees happened, and now they want to make themselves a name for themselves by suddenly backpedaling and.
Lotus, we seem to have lost you. Okay, I still see you on
changing their position on what they were. Friends, stop calling me, please. Okay, so I'm sorry, that's a phone call interruption. Are we still good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so anybody who's backpedaling on what they first said, that first blush, it's called the first blush in law. That first blush you give of when you're giving witness to something, that's what people should listen to. If it looks contrived, you can register people on truth and honesty in that. If people do these first blushes in propaganda, using the press or whatever, and then just a week later backpedal their own statements, that they just nullified themselves as a witness that should be valued. They've already kind of nullified themselves as someone to be believed. He can't even trust his own judgment, is what he's saying. And so that kind of throws those type of backpedalers out of the arena of truth and into propaganda, if only because he's confused by his own perceptions. You either have to go, well, the guy either can't tell the truth on the blush of it, and then when he thinks about it, he doubts himself, and so now why should I believe him? It's that kind of reason and logic. So this is what people should be discerning. It's called discernment, folks, using logic and reason in a peaceful, loving, wisdom. So, Sophia fashion. So that's where we're at. There's going to be shells. They're going to come out of the woodwork. They're going to be, and everyone is supposed to just calmly, take in what they, half. What is it? A half of what you know and all that you see. What is the term there? There's a colloquialism from the South.
Oh, I have no idea. I couldn't grow up in the South.
You know, and something you see. I remember there's all these great, you know, colloquialisms and that and mottos that I was conveyed to me by my grandparents and parents and stuff. And there are always these really good things when you hear them, you're like, yeah. Now that you're older, you're like, oh yeah, that totally applies. I love how that works in life. I mean, it really does. But I mean, really, everything is divine in its nature, and this is a march. This is a steady march. This is not a race to the finish as fast as it can be done. It needs to be done right. So, I would say that everyone should be discerning the facts and discerning the people who are bearing witness. And I also think I'm not discounting anything that anyone says about the other, but here's what I'm going to say, and this is what I've said to anyone that has an issue with VOP. I happen to know that there's, you know, within the other organized militias, they're spreading the word. If the organized militia of Arizona shows up, you know, under color law and presents themselves, just doing the same thing VOP's at, then, you know, they're going to be joining that too. So there is no controls here. This is organic. You know, a call to organize is a call to organize. These guys have they have a hierarchy. They're supposed to be able to self-organize. They're supposed to be able to self-mobilize if they're going to be the organized militia. That's what I saw. So go do it instead of complaining about who's doing what and saying we're not going to do anything if it's associated to him. I was like, okay, well, start another one. Go over here, and you want us to give, you know, you want coordinates for things. That's fine. There are people there, you know, that have other hotspots. This isn't all. It's not like this. The VOP situation is. They are not controlling the reorganization of the organized militia. And the other thing that I was conveying is this isn't your 1776 militia. This isn't even your 1912 militias, the World War II militias, or even the civil defense systems of the World War II. This is a 2018 de jure law cured pillars militia that are going to be operating under the power of the purse of the people to enforce treasury fraud. That's what we're wanting. That's what we want. Because you know what? Our children are that treasury. So if our children are the treasury, that the people down in the counties have the right to define who touches them in commerce or puts claim on. Those need to be constitutional instruments of enforcement through the color of law. Because if we have people defrauding the treasury, they're affecting war against the United States of America. Two different instruments, folks. So are the United States in and of themselves different instruments, and the American people. When people are committing treasury fraud, particularly through the judiciary, that is warring against the Constitution, and it's affecting treasury frauds, which are frauds against our children. So these are constitutional violations that should not be subjected to the approval or funding of the Congress, because they're full of complicity there. They're the ones that affected Title 14 or Title 4 and all these statutes, which that's fine. They're perfect. Now we're going to cure them in law. You brought forth your argument. You've been playing with vacancies and openly trafficking our children for about 30 or 40 years now, Amelia, we think, at least. And that's just on the books.
Well, I was actually thinking it was more like 50 years, but...
that's just on the book.
Yeah.
Right. That's on the books. They were doing it before off the books. What they've done, folks, is the Masons and their divine wisdom and have made the reprobates statutize their criminal, what we know to be criminal activities in commerce. They made them go on the books. They're still a separate books, by the way. This is the trust books. These are the folks that we're allowing to use our treasury, which is our children, in order to promote.
To my knowledge, it originated with Bush Sr., his administration, and then it was legislated and legalized with the American Safe Families Act, the ICMP, and the Clinton administration.
Right, and then so we know,
but it's not legal. It's not legal. It's not legitimate legal.
Well, it's legal. It's not lawful. It's legal. Legal. Legal means when you're talking about things. Okay, but children aren't things in law, and that's the fortoria and the violent violations of not only the statutes, but the high law. Because it's one thing for them to create instruments in commerce and then lay claim to those or lien those for how to run the state. That's our trust. The Treasury should have access to those by the de jure Congress authorizing access to that in proper, like right off the Treasury format. No one's doing that, folks. They're all operating in offsets and adjustments because the side that's bringing this argument of Babylonian slave trade is in trust law off an offset ledger. They can't touch our, you can say the gold's not in Fort Knox. Well, I promise you we know where it's at. And if we don't know where that is, I promise you that the hills of this country are full of gold, more than they ever could think. Our founding fathers, we've known that what they were going to do, folks. It's written in the Bible. Okay? It's written on the hearts of men. You just have to see, that you're in it. You're not in what they say. You're in something far more divine. You're not a fiction. You're not a thing. You're not a United States citizen. That is a thing when they say it. Mm-hmm. That's an instrument of trust. You're saying that I am my driver's license. You're not even saying I'm the driver. You're saying I'm the driver's license. That's what you're saying. You say I'm a United States citizen. In that respect, citizenship is not derived in the Republic from the United States. It is derived from the estates of the Republic Trust. Your citizenship in a Republic construct, such as Rome, is derived on the land from the people who gave the grant of law to create the corporate charter where you have a United States citizenship instrument of international trust in banking. They can do that in that pillar if they follow the statutes. But they cannot steal babies across the bar to get access to it. And guess what? We've been allowing that because we thought they were taking care of the law, and instead they were contemplating vacancies with willful intent in order to leave those vacancies so they could steal our babies proper off the books, folks, off the books, off the Social Security rolls, from one side of the bar to the other, and then disappear them as initialed CB for a child with the name Clayton Michael Bates, never to be referred again as what he was born. They even adulterate the name of the child, and sometimes with utter fraud apply for secondary Social Security numbers, which now creates another trust account. These are frauds of the statutes where they're moving our babies like roulette chips, because every time they move them, they make money. You see, every time they just touch them, they can put a claim against it. We want instruments of de jure law that control who touches the flesh of those children to make sure that statutes are not being defrauded. And we want it instituted through the power of the Treasury to impose the Treasury laws upon the states.
So,
period.
Lotus, just so we kind of stick to the facts, we know that, Senator Jeff Merkley out of Florida flew out here to Texas to go to a Walmart that's been converted to hold some of these women and children, and he was denied access. This we know for a fact. This occurred.
Right.
And
apparently he's a propagandist, though, because he knew they were open on Monday and it was a Sunday. I saw that somewhere. I'm like, really? They're not open on Sunday? What do they do?
No, they're not open to the public. They're not open to the public because the windows are blacked out. I mean, it's a shut down facility.
Okay, you know what that tells me? That's a problem. You know why that's a problem? Because that's a state instrument of commerce, a franchise of a public nature that is holding federal Treasury property, those children, in a prison, and they're denying a federal notarial officer, a senator, access to that, which means the state doesn't recognize his jurisdiction to even come into a federally funded facility, which I'm sure is federally funded, holding federal assets. Don't you guys think that's a problem for the Treasury? That's fraud, just in the simplest sense. It's fraud. Okay, here's what you do. When you have people who are defrauding your bank, you expose their fraud for what it is and then deny them access to the bank. It's really that simple. That's like allowing a guy you know that passes fraudulent checks all the time to keep crashing checks at your bank? There's no reason that a federal officer of a notorious, so that means that the state, that agency, did not recognize his federal security clearance as a federal senator to walk into a instrument of the state government that is holding federal instruments, children, federal assets in federally funded buildings. Does that sound like you've been cooed where you're actually paying for your own imprisonment, folks, by coups within the local states and municipalities? Isn't that what we're talking about addressing here with the reformation of the militias? So I don't really, this shill stuff, this screaming and hollering, stop defaming people and stand up and do something. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't, truthful. Wait till you get in your organized circumstances and then vet that information to them. Do it proper. Because that's another function that we're hoping to do. That's
why we're working with Lazaro and Cenero, from the Oath Keepers. We're trying to bring this forth lawfully and in compliance to federal code. I'm trying to work with people that I've known for years that are very credible, sincere people, humble, honest people, that I've known, like yourself. You and I have been on this journey for quite a few years now.
We're now almost on 2, I think.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is all organic, and the people, by golly, now that we can prove, it's not even proof, it's a truth. We're in trust law and all these things, and the law walks that. The law shows you where we're at. That's the beauty of law. Once you see the law, it is what it is.
Yeah, let me just do a recap here, Lotus, okay? Because, so apparently Craig Sawyer's Sawman and his team of vets uncovered the child trafficking camps down there in Tucson, Arizona, and they went down there and investigated. They went on publicly and announced that nothing came of these investigations. But, however, child trafficking camps have been found in Tucson, Arizona. Prior to that, there were 4 murders that week connected to the John Benet Ramsey case in Arizona, I think, which involved what was it?
Someone who was an officer of the court
an expert witness.
Assistant or something.
Yeah, and then the landowner of the land out there that these camps are found on are owned by CEMEX. CEMEX is a partner of the Clinton Global Initiative and a donor to the Clinton Foundation. CEMEX is also owned by Bronfman Rothschild. Jonathan Rothschild is the mayor of Tucson. Okay? This company, CEMEX, is under U.S. and DOJ investigation, and that was reported March 14th by Reuters in a Reuters article, and you can search that on Google. So I just want to say, these are the facts. This is where we're at. We're sticking to the facts. I'm trying to stick to the facts.
Right. That's why I said all this stuff, this didn't happen, this did happen, the facts will come to bear. And that's what we're going to go with. That's why I said just videotape it, folks. Just document it. Judgment, discernment, if you're going to just, be a judge of things that you're watching or seeing, and you better be from personal experience of, I know this person to say this to me. That's what's going to count. Hearsay is not. And so, just stop defaming people, because we have to go, and this is the whole point. We're on the simplest form of Roman law, honor and dishonor. You know why? Because we're all in repository trust law. And as agents of the state, they are compelled by duty to do the right thing. In the military, they're compelled by duty to do the right thing. In the military construct, that whole lineage is from Roman civil law and from the Picts of Scotland and all this other stuff.
And there's also some deliberate propaganda being disseminated that this is happening and occurring under this Trump administration. This is absolutely false. Senate Bill 18, SB 18 was passed in 2016 under the Obama administration, and that is what has allowed them to take these children.
if people understood the law that's in place that he walked into, and you could see it's a setup to literally, it's the vacancies of statutes. I just spoke about this. I had a long conversation with a wonderful woman who is an attorney up in the north. And she sees the same things. She's like, where's this criminality come from? So she and some group of attorneys got together with professors of law, which are the big muckamucks. They're the real, those are lawyers. Your professors, your doctorates of jurisprudence in the professions of jurisprudence, which are philosophy degrees, folks. Philosophy degrees. Those are your lawyers. Everybody else is an esquire, banker, or a common law solver. Okay? So there's things in the middle, but I mean, those guys are the law. So they did a study about and said there appears to be a vacancy, an intentional vacancy of the laws, that the judiciary is being manipulated. The bar unions are manipulating to not advance and find the unconstitutionality of statutes, not impose the statutes. And in our case with Clay, we can clearly show that the judiciary was covering up fraud upon the statutes by affecting frauds themselves, even in the circuit court clerks. In the only two circuit courts I've been in, they both defrauded the instrument on the face of it. So, you have a coup in the judiciary. It may be an imposed coup. They could be under threat of death by people. We don't know. That's the whole thing here, folks. It's going to fall like dominoes. But what we do know is the instruments that are up for the debate of jurisdiction are children, okay, who by Treasury law, kidnapping is a Treasury crime. So it's a perpetuation of Treasury. That is, therefore, under the executive branch as a mandate of the bank to impose the banking administrative procedures called statutes to effect a claim upon their bank. The courts have to follow the statutes to perfect a claim upon the Treasury to allow those bonds that they effect through the judiciary to not be fraudulent. If they're not affecting, and if it's in the process of defrauding our children and stealing our kids, that brings on a whole nother slew of crimes. That becomes international child trafficking and crimes against humanity. So these are clearly exclusive executive branch jurisdictions and international jurisdictions. Okay, so that's there. Additionally, if there are people in the judiciary and the police and prosecuting attorneys, agents of state, who are participating in this under the color of law, that becomes conspiracy against the United States, which is an act of treason and sedition, which is a military exclusive.
Lotus, we're not just coming out and making these claims. We're vetting evidence as it comes in, and I just want to say what's out there isn't there is more, and I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to, but this absolutely is happening beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yes, it's happening. Yes, folks, this happens. It's not an oddity. It's a commodity. Okay? And it's the commodity of your government in banking. And your government in coup is selling your children as commodities, like officially stealing them and trafficking them and selling them. So they're defrauding, they're affecting war. As I was saying, treason and sedition are the exclusive jurisdiction under civil form of the military. So once again, the chief commander of the military is the POTUS. The Treasury is under the exclusive jurisdiction. You understand? That he's the dude that talks to the Fed, right? Mm-hmm. He's a dude. So these are executive branch Treasury crimes that we're talking about.
We have people like Craig Salmon Sawyer that are out there saying, "Oh, this isn't true. This isn't happening." When we absolutely know it's happening. We absolutely know it's happening. We also have. We will find one that will because it's there. Truthers in our own community, including Alex Jones, that's not reporting on this stuff.
I don't care about Alex Jones. I don't give a hooey about that man. Who cares? That Alex Jones isn't reporting it. Does it make him not newsworthy because he doesn't report it? No. I mean, the guy's got a mouth. He's a shock jock. I consider him of the quality of Howard Stern, but about politics. He's not the guru of alternative news.
Yeah.
So everyone else stand up. We don't even need that if people just put the videos up and the proof. You know, and the beauty of the organized militia is that people are starting to realize that if we had them, people could report to them. Because when your child is stolen by an agent of the state without a warrant, a valid warrant, we can prove we're not getting remedy in the judiciary because they're culpable. They're the ones that are allowing the fraudulent orders to happen with their own police force, the army of the judiciary. Okay, so if your judiciary in coup, who else is going to protect children or impose the law? Again,
we the people, the fourth branch of government.
Absolutely. We have the right to protect our children from being unlawfully and fraudulently seized by instruments of state that are foreign to us. The state of Texas is foreign to the people of the Great Republic of Texas. It is a separate instrument. And if the state of Texas is allowing the state of Texas judiciary, which are mere corporations of the public nature, to steal the children of the Great Republic of Texas, then the Great Republic of Texas people have the right to organize a state militia and protect the instruments of trust that they settled through the Treasury. That's a fact of law. People are separate from this corporate construct. They have led you to believe you are the state of Texas. No, you're not. The state of Texas is a piece of paper and a corporate fiction of your corporate overlay that allows the people of the Republic of Texas to affect commerce internationally, now over the internet, without asking your king. That's what it's for. But the instruments of state, they're supposed to be imposing those state and federal statutes, are using vacancies that have been contrived through coup in the state and the federal system with agents of international unknown origin to use those vacancies and statutes to literally steal children through our judiciary. Now, if you have your judiciary culpable in child trafficking, folks, do you actually think that it isn't rampant in the private sector of the rich and famous and powerful? Who do you think are the customers of that judiciary? Wake up, folks. The only way to do this lawful is to put the onus on the POTUS and the Treasury to protect the assets of the American people that they hold a duty by fiduciary to protect from warring against our children. They're warring against our children. Literally. Using the Treasury instruments that are supposed to protect them in commerce. Well, it's not. It's literally supposed to protect them. And that implied trust of that instrument is supposed to protect them in commerce from frauds. And they're using it to steal them and kidnap them and sell them, like in the flesh. That's disgusting. Who can argue that we need, if we have rampant judicial misconduct, who can argue that the most likely and required duty of POTUS is to call up the organized militias? He has a duty to, folks. He does. And so I'm calling the people that I know that have served under the oath of protecting the American people, in the military as veterans, to organize under the lawful authority of the militias and to step up, protect the instruments of the Treasury, our children. How hard is that? How are they going to argue against that? We're protecting our children against Treasury fraud. You're not going to seize this kid no more. We're the organized militia. Get back, CPS. Where's your warrant? Mm-hmm. Show us the warrant. We'll go get the kid. You can't cure a warrant? You're not going to get a kid. You're not going to touch a kid. You give us a fraudulent warrant, you're going to a military tribunal. We're going to hang you for crimes against the United States for defrauding a treasury instrument. See ya. They don't want to cure themselves. We'll cure it for them. They've had every opportunity. Every branch of government is inundated now, folks. Someone sent me a letter that said that the FBI was without a grant of law. Is that true? They had no organizational paperwork, no grant. Someone needs to find that out, because if they don't have a grant, they need dissolved. And I'm not kidding about that. That just means they're just this loose agency with no mandate. So, I mean, I saw a letter. I wish someone would vet that. They apparently found someone was sent a letter.
Too many cases of these child care facilities that are being contracted with CPS. The state is contracting out child care facilities that are being busted. Not necessarily the state of Texas. I'm talking everywhere. LA, Ohio. These child care facilities are being busted for harming and peddling child pornography.
Here's the other thing. If you have a lot of kids falling through the cracks because of the state of things, what compels the states, the corporate states, to fix these vacancies and these poverties, these torts, basically violations of their mandate, to make things better? What motivates them to make things better for the people they purportedly represent in commerce and with their treasury instruments, and to make things better for them when they make money by them being bad? Because it's bad, because then they can defraud the statutes in gross numbers. I mean, I know 75,000 pages. What's the number now of federal statutes? Every one of those is trying to produce a crime, and most of those, and a lot of those statutes need to be looked at to make sure if the statutes that are being affected are actually within the Constitution. You know why? Because the attorneys have just put them there and hidden these little back doors. I can show you back doors in the statutes of Ohio that say that a child's rights can be waived just by the motion of the prosecutor who wants to take by the motion of the plaintiff. The child can be immediately treated as a thing, and he can put a commercial lien on the child. I mean, it's just disgusting stuff like this, folks. I mean, these folks are crazy. I mean, I just can't even. When people understand the business practice of it, but here's the beauty: they've basically, the jinn have built the temple. Now we're going to kick them out and use it for its divine purpose. Yeah. That's what this is, our temple, folks. And it's really crazy. I just realized I had to meet my wife where I did, because I had to go to a bookstore with her on Friday to find a masonry encyclopedia, so I could read it. I would have never gone. It's just one of those things, and it's got the rights of the perfection, and you start to understand. There's a lot what people don't understand about the world and the law is there's like a godzillion amount of dictionaries where people in their little professions and special associations have been doing it so long, they have all these different definitions than what you know them to be. And it's not incumbent in them, necessarily to try to explain everything to you. You should want to understand. And that's comedy. Now, if you go upon people and say, tell me the definition of parent, and they lie to you and don't tell you that it's a statutory, like a statutory seat that anyone can be called as a controller of a ward. You're denied leadership, you're denied parentage, right? They don't tell you that it's moving you to a function of the state with no blood rights. No rights by blood. And that's really the argument of this whole paradigm: is who has rights, who has the rights to, who do we have the right to blood inheritance is what it is. And how that blood inheritance is conveyed through the old masonry and then Scottish rites, all of the rights of all the old groups of people that evolved into self-governed, self-managed kingdoms, fiefdoms, where there wasn't fief. You had like what we would call now a warlord. But here, really, what he did is he conquered all the tribes' kings and said, let's make a council, They look at us badly, but, that's where we come from as a people. And they established laws within those bands of people. And, Masonry kind of comes out of those, and they call them rites, which is the standard means of doing things within this region, like a Scottish rite. The Scottish rite is established by a king who, he was the first king of the Picts, unified, and he had only daughters, and it was a patrilineage society up until that point. And there was always, whenever a male heir had not been born, then all the men in the tribes would war again. He says, we're going to stop this, and you're going to unify you, and you're going to recognize that I only have 3 daughters, and one of my sons shall be king. And he succeeded in that and unified and said, we're not going to, so he created blood lineage and that's the Scottish rite, that a right can be conveyed from a mother to a son in inheritance, which the Roman construct does not allow. So, and this is my research. No one's going to talk about this stuff, folks. They're not going to put it in the context of old law in the Celts, okay? But here Jesus comes to Rome, which is, after the Celts, right? And he's professing to be an unknown father from a mother they know, but a different father than Joseph, right? You don't know my father. So Rome wouldn't give him his inheritance to this kingdom, and they set it aside. Because in the Roman way, he couldn't claim to be the heir of a kingdom because he was from the mother and not a son to a son. I'm saying he was literally from the daughter of the king, not the son of the king. And so that's the war against the woe, in my mind, that the red dragon war against the woman to eat the sons of men that they don't know, to try to prevent. So because in their mindset, they can have an elective government then, where other grown men, and this happens a lot, and where this came to be abused even after the concept of blood inheritance, of lineal consanguinity through blood from the mother. You can always prove who the mom is, folks. The dad's up until modern history, the dad was always up for grabs, except for extraneous characteristics of, the face and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Then it could be brother, But it was always the mother. So it was basically a way to pollute the blood lineage of people that are prone to being naturally leaders and naturally wise, right? If that's what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. So, and they didn't want that because then, for example, a king would die and he'd have a small son. Well, then the dukes started wars, right? This is what happened in Europe. Again, back to who's fighting to control the fiefdom at this point, because at that point in time, they used taxation. Like the Stamp Act is a taxation upon the press to control the public, what the people know. They made the papers cost money instead of being free or a pittance, whatever. They made it expensive enough that the masses couldn't afford them. So these taxation is a form of oppressing the truth from the people, and that is another way they do it still. So people don't understand the evolution of law that has brought us where we're at. And if you understand the Masonic construct, yes, there are good and bad. But again, the jinn and the Masons helped build the temple, because that's what the Masons saw. That's the motto. I mean, it's good with bad, folks. I'm not trespass. I'm not absolving people of my personal opinion of them, but the law is what walks here. That's to keep us from barbarianism or more rebellion. Because remember, rebellions just serve their system. They're going to put us in trust after trust after trust until we come to argue the central issue of what is a military honor thing to do, and what's a civilly honorable thing to do, and a civilly dishonorable thing to do. And the only argument on the table is that children aren't a booty of war, and that children, men of war, should be, quote, men of war should be fighting to protect the children, not to rape and pillage them. So that's the only argument here. And the Christian of the major religions, quote unquote, that are running around. Yes, we have a lot of gin running even in the church. That's all churches. There's good, there's good and bad everywhere, folks. I'm not saying this, but of the major pillars of religion we're dealing with here, we're the only ones that say that babies are not to be touched, and that putting a man into shackles is a crime under God that deserves death. The other ones don't. They're okay with that. They're okay with that. Mm-hmm. So we don't consider babies commerce. You can tell that we're not operating under de jure law if you have the statutes coming out of the feds. But again, they have to statutize the greater law, and then it has to be argued. That's how statutes work. You have to understand, we all created this really great concept of philosophy, and then the rest of the progeny of those people were set out to task to create statutes in commerce and law that complied with that greater construct. We've done a really good time until just now. This is, and actually the cure to this is to make frauds against the statutes of treasury crime under the jurisdiction of the executive branch, because they're defrauding our bank. So as it stands now, that's the Ouroboros, that's the Ouroboros perfected. Right, as it stands now, because even with the de jure instruments vacant, the Treasury can control fraud against the statutes with that movement. We don't even need to bring forth a de jure Congress for that respect. We should, if we wanted to, but that's for the purse. We've spoken as a de jure Congress of the Republic. We say we're not going to pay for frauds against our children anymore. That is the organic Congress saying no more with the sword of Solomon. We're not paying for that anymore. You will follow, if you are going to take a child from a family, you are going to follow the Constitution, the de jure, to a T. You will provide due process. You will provide these things. You will provide discovery. You will not say the states are immune when they affect kidnapping for our children. We are not going to pay for those bonds. I mean, it's disgusting. That it makes the government international child trafficking RICO is what it makes. I mean, like officially in the law, it makes it the United States an international trafficking instrument when the Treasury allows such activity. And it's not a de jure bank if they do that. And it's certainly not operating by our full faith and credit. So that's where I'm going with this, because that is we are talking about the reconstitution of the of the organized militia. This is not the 1776 militia. This is not the 1912. This is the reorganized de jure, reconstituted. We're bringing the two constitutions together and giving the Treasury the de jure instrument to protect our children from kidnapping, from invaders, from criminal. Who cares? Just protect our kids. The biggest asset we have. Then we don't have to worry, all these arguments with these kids that don't want guns in school. It simplifies that. They're under state protection of the instrument of the organized militias. Mm-hmm. A lot easier.
Yeah, I agree.
And that because you know what, the truth, and then this is the issue. I don't have a problem with having response teams or even protections for these locations, because they are warring against our kids, folks. Yep. They're using our kids in that respect, in my opinion, to perpetuate propaganda in a lot of ways. I don't approve of the totality of those arguments, but I do approve of the fact that there needs to be a state constitutional.
Lotus, when we talk about this culture of pedophilia, for instance, okay, very young children that, and we do know that when very young children are sexually abused, they experience disassociation. Disassociation creates a mental state that makes children more susceptible to programming, MK Ultra.
Yeah.
So we have a generation that has been programmed.
Yeah, and that's going to take a bit to unprogram. I mean, it is what it is. It's a process. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, but I do believe that it will have a very cascading and domino effect once this process changes, because it all will slide into place. It will all slide into place in the law. is when you know it's truth. Okay. The law walks itself. The truth is in the saying of it, in the seeing of it, in the knowing of it. You just see it. You're like, that's truth. So it'll all work itself out. And so I just, again, we talk about discernment. And we're in a period where everyone should act wisely. So everyone should act with discernment. One should contemplate the things that they do. One should contemplate what they entertain as fact and not. Like Missouri says, show me. I'd rather show me, have someone show me than anything, because then I can bear witness to it. Mm-hmm. We're working on getting more units of the organized militias coming forward. So the VOP stuff, that's going to die down as far as whether it's true or not, because he'll just be one of many, and that's what's happening. So there is a great interest in a core group of people that are very determined to work the law, allow the law to walk itself for us, and allow us to bring forth the organized militia under the auspices of ensuring our children against treasury crimes, by physically taking possession of our children as a state republic, asset that we shall defend against foreign and domestic invasion and crimes. So that's where I'm at. So that's, I'm going to be talking on a couple shows to try to express this, but it's real clear.
You're going to be going on Thomas Lacavera's show, which can you go ahead and share about that? Because I'm going to be doing a promotion for that broadcast.
No, I think that we're now at 6:00 tonight, unless he's postponed it. And that's, again, this stuff moves so fast, and we have so many people on conference calls, this and that. Like, we scheduled us talking, at 11 o'clock or something. I just got back to you, now, because I've been on the phone with people. So I think we're going to do it at 6. And I think that what he wants to talk about is the fourth crown and the curing of the crown and where this jurisdiction lies, because the problem that people are having is they're thinking of the ideology of the militias from 1776, which was codified into military code in 1912, I think is the date, at least under the Department of War, the War Department, and that so we have references to doing this, and that now we're going to do it to take up. The problem is not the statutes, folks. The problem is the people not enforcing them in the 3 branches of government that are supposed to be doing their job to do this. So when you have people in coup operating against the laws of the United States and criminal activities and conspiracy against the United States, you need your state militias, organized state militias through the military code under the color of law, under the military color of law. Vetted, because you're talking about sedition and treason and crimes against humanity and treasury crimes. We're calling it what it is. When they traffic these kids in CPS and these probate courts under fraudulent claims under Title IV, it is a crime against the United States. It's an act of treason and sedition upon its face, and it's a treasury crime. Because if you're not in compliance with the statutes and you take a baby, that is kidnapping. I don't care who you are. So that's the sword right there. We're done. And and if we don't give POTUS, we need to come forth and do our duty to make this happen, because we have to give POTUS the instrument. We can't sit and complain about him draining the swamp. How's he going to drain the swamp and arrest judges who are fucking sedition and treason when they're protected by their associations everywhere and no one will investigate him or bring charges? You understand where we're going with this? That's why we have, and this is not Posse Comitatus. This is not Posse Comitatus. These are not United States Army.
The show that Lotus is going to be going on is called Real Truth Radio, and it's with Thomas Mick, and you can find that on Facebook, and we'll be sharing that to Social Media News Network. Go ahead. Yeah, and I really welcome all discussions that we're having, because this is, like I said, this is an organic process. And like today, I talked to a few of the organized vet groups, and we discussed his reservations concerning the law and where we were going with this. And as soon as I explained to him, he goes, "Well, you know why they're treasury crime?" I said, "Absolutely. See, everyone knows that our kids are insured now.
and that they are a commodity with a value in a lot of money, and that they're using that value in their hypothecation as the only. Okay, they're trading, but they trade drugs and stuff because the Fed note prevents them from embezzling money. They're using your children, much like they are do drugs, to run foreign corporations. You have people running babies to create empires of international criminal conspiracies, folks. Selling babies to pedophiles, rich elite, powerful to do pedophiles, and supplementing criminal activity in international scopes. That's what you have. This is a big deal. This is not just in the United States. This encompasses the whole globe, folks. And it's been going on for generations.
This is really, really hard for people to wrap their heads around, Lotus. But there's pedophiles, which are preying on our children, on children's innocence. And then there are pedivores. And these are people that are actually abusing these children and killing them for purposes of deriving a drug called adrenochrome, as well as consuming the flesh. And this is real. This is happening. It's a culture, and there's a difference. So I just wanted to define that.
Yeah, they call it necromancy in sci-fi, right? And really, necromancy is just a disgusting psychosis where you. And this is the utter atonement of of one of the Mason oaths of the 33rd, and that's God by my right. By my right from God, basically. And some of the sickos in the Mason Guild, in their secret guild, where they're hidden intentionally, so that it's like bam, pazzaha, it's a whole pyramid scheme. You're all going to go down with the ship, all you reprobates, right? So it's a big bam, right? Now the books will be open, the pillars shall be judged, the whore shall be. See, this is all Revelations, and these people are necromancers, but they actually objectify. So they're sociopathic. They're a sociopathic cult of people who think that it's their right to prey upon anything that they can get their hands on, which particularly is easy to do with babies and weak women. And that's why it's particularly a very male-dominated cult, because it's the man who thinks he can do whatever he wants in his personal pursuits for his own personal lucre to anything that he comes across, because he can. So it's the repugnant.
He can do whatever he wants.
Absolutely. But yeah, God gave me the power to do this. I should wield all my godly powers.
When I hear a man say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, where can I hide? Get out of my way.
Psychopath. That's psychopath.
You're a narcissistic psychopath, and you're not one of the good guys.
No, you're not. You're a psychopath. There's no reason to resort to violence ever. Women have learned not to do it because it doesn't suit the interest of the child. And this is the hidden wisdom. Why is it a hidden wisdom to men that if they war against other men's children, they war against themselves? And this is, what Camus talks about in The Rebel, So, it's about when you promote nihilism against one class of individual, you affect. That's how law is. Even if you think it doesn't apply, it shall apply in law eventually to all. So, if you think that children can be trafficked, then anyone can be trafficked of any age, and people are starting to realize they're trafficking the elderly people. They're going and arresting them.
It's crazy because these are people These are people that are warring. They war against everybody within. They're infiltrators within.
Well, and they do it under the guise, we're doing it for your own good. It's like, get your psychopathic hands off of me. I really talked about this with my immediate friends, in an intimate setting. And when I was going through the process of political activism, mind you, I came from the 60s and 70s, flower kid and everything. Saw that and heard all that. Had my faceplate glued to the tube before they were censoring the truth when it came to war. And I remember that these cops just thinking they could just grab people and touch on you and rough you up. And thinking, what man could learn to grab a woman or child, the way that you see these people react towards, and it's a hatred of it's just a hatred of not me. And those are crazy people, folks. When you see a cop beating on an 18-year-old or whatever, I don't even care.
It's more like a Jekyll. It's more like a Jekyll and Hyde.
I think there's a Jekyll and I think they're all Jekyll. You mean Hyde it's a false persona. They're underneath, here's what you're going to find, folks. Underneath those pretty little uniforms of state are a lot of really disgusting people. You will find that since the statutes are openly being defrauded and the state is in utter lawlessness when it comes to the judiciary, at least when it comes to property rights of the American people. Maybe they're doing right by Shell Corp and all these, I don't know. So that seems to be okay, which I'm glad, because we don't want international commerce to come to a stall because of the reprobates in our judiciary. And we don't want them to bankrupt and corrupt the Treasury. We don't want that. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We don't want them to destroy our country from within, which is what they're here to do, folks. They're here to eat our substance. Same folks, same guild, same bar. Same temple bar, folks, same temple bar. So, we've gone through this, and we're just carrying along. It is what it is.
The quiz question was of the day. What was the only empire to overthrow the Romans?
The Peloponnesians, with the help of Prussia.
And the Celts? The Celts?
Yeah, the Celts. Oh, yes. Well, actually, they didn't overcome Rome. The Peloponnesians, right? The Celts beat the Romans into the ground. They just found a big death camp of Romans. That was like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh! They always had this rumor the Romans went into the Celtic lands where the Scottish rites and stuff derived from, and they whooped them. And this dude, like 2 years ago, was plowing, and he finds this treasure trove of only Roman armor. Like, they murdered them and left their gold, like all their stuff. They just left them to rot. The Celts didn't even want their money. Okay, the Celts annihilated Rome. Now, the Peloponnesians, a 27-year war, and they ended up withdrawing from statutes. Is what they did. They basically just kind of said, hey, you're corrupting the statutes. Imagine that, Yeah. And you're treating us provinces with iniquity. Imagine that, certain classes of people. So they've pushed the repugnance of that type of Babylonian. You have to remember, there was baby sacrifices in the temples of Solomon, folks, that we're removing the baby issue from the law of the Temple of Solomon. I'm going to go from that. Let's put it there in a historical sense. And so, and we're the ones that's supposed to do it. By revelation, we are the.
I want to say, I think it's really, truly amazing, Lotus, how you and I came together, and how everybody collectively is coming together to resolve this. Yeah,
protect our kids.
Yeah.
And guess what? These instruments of law will help the de jure cops and the de jure sheriffs and the de jure attorneys and the de jure judges, because it'll alleviate a lot of the issues,
And our de jure president of the United States of America.
Well, and you know what else it'll do? It'll help reform the states in the manner in which they do their funding. These states are, I don't understand why a state would be receiving so much money from the federal government and grant funding in the way that some of these states do. They have CAFR accounts, and they also have the productivity of the state and the people in their products and stuff. So I really am interested to see how off those books are, if there's any states that are operating well. And I think that there are. I think there's some good economies being maintained by the state treasuries. But there's probably a lot of treasuries that are just full of fraud, and we got to figure that out. We got to cure those bonds. We got to fix that up. But the fact of the matter is, we're not going to continue to fund Babylonian slave trade banking. You're not going to use our surety to do your baby trafficking with. That's basically what we're saying. You're not in our bank no more. You're not going to be party to our treasury. You're not going to be able to access our treasury. So, and the best way to do that is, because this literally is an attempt to rout out the treasury. To keep pulling money up.
It's increasingly becoming aware. I'm becoming aware that I need to do something to I have a lot of listeners that are former foster children or foster children that are aging out of the system. And I really want to try to organize. Well, I really want to try to organize and do something bigger with all of this. And I don't quite know how I'm going to go about it, but everybody that's tuning in.
Whenever we would, with my friends I have, when we would have pie in the sky, ideas of if we had a big lump sum of money in our own bank, our own banking platform where we controlled the funding. This is where you would bring the de jure Congress in. I personally, we were talking about just yesterday, Ray and I, of reforming the prison systems to take the violent offenders out completely in the violent offender populations, have the violent offenders be more intensive and more independent in that respect. Well, because they have,
and there's no vocational training for women in prison.
Right. And we even talked about creating for nonviolent offenders a cohabitation type of prison. And you need to have it be an option in this respect, because there's a lot of most people, particularly women, who are in drug crimes.
I mean, right now, the way that it is, they're using these women that are, coming back into prison and getting recycled through the system as breeders, and they're not offering them any kind of vocational training like they offer the men in prison.
Yeah. The whole prison system needs to be completely revamped, and the disparity between men and women and what is provided them, first off, needs to be immediately reconciled. And I mean immediately, but you also have to understand the need for women's prison systems is on the rise, because they're trying to steal babies. So you will notice the rise in the prison industrial complex as it addresses women, as they've started with Title IV, wanting to put women in prison more often to create fabricated abandonment. Okay, like Ray, she was put in prison. They would this is how they create abandonment in their racketeering, folks. The criminal judge, who's the best friend of the probate judge, sends someone to prison for a year that should have gone to a 3-month in-house drug treatment program at best. And he sends us to a year in prison under a plea agreement, takes her kid away. Then the probate gives them to CPS. Then the CPS sets up appointment times for the mother who's in prison to visit her son. And when she doesn't make it, they charge her with an abandonment charge. That's how they do. I'm not kidding you, folks. Then they keep them in prison by violating the plea agreements to the point of this is Ray's case. I mean, this is bad. So they've been putting women in prison specifically for the purposes of racketing the children through the probate cases that are attached to these criminal charges.
What they do is they put these women in prison. They're pregnant, and they sell the babies for a couple $1,000s. So when the women get out of prison, they have a couple $1,000s on their books. They can go. Wait. Let me finish. They can go and get an apartment. And then, what they end up back in jail. And what do? They end up becoming human trafficked or whoring themselves out. I hate to use that term, but, that prostituting themselves out to make ends meet. They end up pregnant again, back in jail, and the cycle repeats itself all over again.
Right. Well, a couple things there. They actually put the money on the books while they're in prison. So they actually put money in through the state, and or most of the state things are run by the state.
This can all be tracked. This can all be proven. And there is no vocational training for women. And so they've got this baby mill.
Okay, I'm trying to speak to actual facts about it. So just give me a second here. That they actually are using, the divisions, most state prisons use the same organization to run all of the money from out here into the prisons through a corporation. Well, that corporation, in most accounts, and most federal, are foreign owned. So you have foreign owned companies running your prison industrial complex too. You have them actually taking money from American people at a tune of however many percentage per transaction, or how much for this, for that, or how much the phone costs, to a tune of who knows how much money, stealing the wealth of the families of the people in prison that are being funneled out of foreign corps that are registered as foreign corporations. It's really that bad, folks. They are literally trafficking humans through the prison industrial complex, again, for the same purposes they do children. Every time they touch you, they can put a claim on this big bond you have, this trust account, and bill it for what it cost them to keep you in your insane state of rebellion. It's really people have no idea how the Babylonian slave trade has been cultivating what is happening in our culture when it comes to criminal justice systems, when it comes to the reform system, all that. Anytime they're touching people and moving them about as agents of state with the power of the state to move a flesh instrument as a person, like you have an instrument of commerce. So they're bringing you to the table by this bond they put on you. That's your shackle to their totalitarianism. That's the shackle to the prevailing construct you were put in by your incarnation randomly in the state of Missouri of the Republic United States. I could have just as been in the state of Congo in Africa, but I dropped here, And so that's the craziness of it. We're sitting here arguing whether the realm I was born into can be imposed and forced to believe in a republic, constitutional republic setting. Okay, if I don't agree with my government, I don't have to tithe it. Okay, I don't. That's the law. I don't even have to give them. If I actually have a Jubilee Trust, by law, I could remove it. Well, when it's in Susticate, if one of them gets removed, they all collapse. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. The Susticate should collapse, folks. We'd be on direct ledger now. We could actually have a revalue. We could actually go back to real material assets, and people would hold the value in the land. We would be landed again. We wouldn't be vassals in tenancy, in fiefdom all over the world. The whole world would be free from fiefdom under the Federal Reserve System if we just removed the bad people.
If we all stick together, we the people, and we can accomplish this. We can eliminate human slavery by the year 2020. I believe we can do it.
Well, we can sure put a big dent in it just by engaging the Treasury in their fiduciary duty to protect the assets of the Treasury, the American children of God. And that includes the other thing. People have to wonder, how does our government have jurisdiction over children that aren't part of our Treasury? Well, they could presume that because we are the new Rome. We are Rome. We say we are the, and that's fine. If we're going to protect the children, though, let's not leave them in Walmarts run by private corps funded by corruption in the states. Hey. Yeah. That's all I'm here for, folks. I'm just here to say this is what I envision. This is, from my humble opinion, what the law affords us to do. If someone thinks I'm wrong, feel free. Feel free. But as of yet, knock on wood, we've had the grace of God to have this, for this to go well, and I think we're going to make it happen. So everyone, the goal is to reunify, is to reconstitute the law and the organized.
God protect the Republic. Yeah. Lotus, thank you so much, and be sure to catch Lotus on I think it's Real Truth Radio with Thomas Lacavera or Thomas Mike. I think Mick it is Mick. And I'll be posting links to that in Social Media News Network. You can also check us out on human2020.com. And I am on Spreaker, and you can subscribe to my show for free. Yeah,
check out my videos, folks. You need to start watching them. I mean, this is all a beautiful thing. I have great faith in Goddess, and I know that we're actually right now we're curing the God Mother. The God Father has improved, but the constructs of Jesus and God Mother Father has been cured, and that it's the blood lineage of the rights of mothers, to protect their children from states of men. That's really what this is about, folks, and that's where Jesus was. That's the 7 swords of Mary that she carries for her son. So remember these constructs, and I hate to say it, but this is Masonry, folks. There's good and bad. But if you follow a Masonic principled law according to the right of perfection, you are a Knights Templar. So you decide what you want to be. So, yeah. I love all you. Namaste. Namaste.
Awesome. I love it.
I'd say I'm working later, but this isn't working. This is just my yoke. This is my path. So you have a good night. I'll talk to you. Anything I hear, I'll let you know, Amelia.
Oh, yeah. You'll keep me posted. All right, Lotus. Thanks so much for calling in. Bye-bye. God bless. All right, folks, you heard it here on the Porthole to Justice. We will be keeping everybody updated on, information as it comes in. Like I said, I'm trying to be really responsible about what I put out there, but I just want to say Thank you so much to all of the Oath Keepers and the truckers out there. Chris Odom, my favorite trucker out there on the road, supporting my show and doing badass mama bear stuff. I love you. And all of my friends that are sharing content on Facebook. You guys rock. NWO Freedom Fighters, New Earth United, Anonymous, thank you so much for taking this charge up and helping me get the word out. This has been another episode of Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth.